On the way to his engagement with his fiancée, a millionaire CEO's car broke down. He called an Uber and was shocked to see his ex driving, with a 5-year-old daughter in the back seat. "Hi, my beautiful family. May the Almighty wrap you in His infinite love, grant every woman unshakable strength, unwavering dignity, and a heart that shines with pure kindness. May every home be a sanctuary of peace, every path you walk be guided by blessings, and every soul find comfort and hope. May health, happiness, and success follow you, and may your sacrifices be honored in ways beyond measure. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, 'I am with Mr. Peter.'" The check engine light had been blinking for the past mile, but Josh ignored it the same way he'd been ignoring the tightness in his chest all week. The rain came down harder, blurring the highway ahead, and then the luxury sedan coughed once before the dashboard went dark. He coasted onto the shoulder, expensive leather seats suddenly feeling like a cage. The engagement party started in an hour. Beth would be waiting at the entrance in that gown she'd spent weeks selecting, photographers ready to capture their arrival for the society pages. His phone showed a dozen missed calls from her father's assistant, each one a reminder that tonight wasn't just about celebrating love, it was about announcing the merger that would save everything his father had built. Josh called an Uber. The app showed a driver 4 minutes away. He sat in the dead car, watching rain streak down the windshield, and tried to remember the last time he'd felt anything close to excitement about marrying Beth Mooney. Headlights appeared through the rain. A modest sedan pulled up behind him, hazards blinking. Josh grabbed his jacket and stepped into the downpour, reaching for the back door. Then he saw the driver's face through the window, and the world tilted sideways. Danielle Gibson. 6 years of searching, of wondering, of carrying guilt like stones in his pockets, and she was here, staring straight ahead with both hands locked on the steering wheel. Josh stood frozen in the rain until she rolled down the window just enough for her voice to escape. "Are you getting in or not?" He climbed into the back seat, water dripping from his hair onto the leather. The interior smelled like vanilla air freshener and old coffee. A booster seat sat empty beside him, and a child's drawing was taped to the window, a house with 3 stick figures and a yellow sun. "Danielle." His voice cracked on her name. She turned up the radio. Some pop song filled the silence between them, too cheerful for the moment. Josh watched her hands grip the wheel, knuckles tight, and noticed she wore no rings. Her hair was different, shorter, pulled back in a practical ponytail. She'd always worn it long, spilling over her shoulders in waves he'd memorized with his fingers. "I didn't know you drove for... The venue is downtown, right?" She cut him off, typing into the GPS, "The Mooney estate." So she knew. Of course she knew. The engagement announcement had been in every business publication, every society column. The union of 2 business dynasties, the strategic merger disguised as romance. Josh tried again. "It's been 6 years. Danielle's voice was flat, emotionless. "I can count." The drive took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Josh searching for words that dissolved before reaching his tongue. 20 minutes of watching the back of Danielle's head, the curve of her neck, the way she checked her mirrors with the same careful precision she'd brought to everything. 20 minutes of that booster seat sitting beside him like an accusation. They pulled up to the venue, all glass and marble and landscaped gardens, lit by tasteful uplighting. Beth stood at the entrance exactly as Josh had pictured, her gown shimmering under the lights. People moved around her with champagne glasses and cameras, a carefully choreographed celebration of the life Josh was supposed to want. He reached for the door handle but couldn't make his hand move. "Danielle, I need to know." "You need to go." She still wouldn't look at him. "Your fiancé is waiting." Josh opened the door, stepped into the rain that had softened to a drizzle. He stood there like an idiot, half in and half out of the car, wanting to say something that mattered. But Danielle was already pulling away from the curb, and then she was gone, taillights disappearing into traffic like they'd done 6 years ago, when she'd walked out of his life without explanation. "There you are." Beth's voice carried across the parking circle. She hurried toward him in her expensive gown, careful to avoid puddles. "What happened to your car? You're soaked." Josh let her loop her arm through his, let her guide him toward the entrance, where her father waited with a smile that never reached his eyes. Inside, the party was already in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Women in designer dresses clinked glasses with men in custom suits. Everyone important had come to witness the joining of two empires. David, Josh's business partner, appeared at his elbow with champagne. "You look like hell. Everything okay?" "Fine." Josh took the glass but didn't drink. "Car trouble." "Well, Mr. Mooney is about to make the toast, so pull it together. We need this to go perfectly." Josh knew what David meant. The company his father had spent a lifetime building was hemorrhaging money, drowning in debt from expansion that had happened at exactly the wrong time. Without the Mooney investment, without this marriage, everything would collapse. The employees who'd worked for the company for decades would lose their jobs. The legacy would die. Beth's father stood, tapping his glass for attention. The room quieted. He launched into a speech about family, about partnership, about the bright future ahead. People applauded at the right moments. Beth smiled beside Josh, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Josh heard none of it. He kept seeing that booster seat, that drawing of 3 stick figures. "And now," Mr. Mooney concluded, "let's raise our glasses to the future Mr. and Mrs. Josh English." Everyone drank. Everyone cheered. Josh lifted his glass to his lips and tasted nothing. The party stretched past midnight. Josh danced with Beth because that's what was expected. He shook hands with investors and smiled for photographers and discussed merger timelines with men who measured relationships in quarterly projections. Through it all, his mind kept circling back to that car ride, to Danielle's rigid posture, to the child's artwork taped to the window. Later, in the hotel suite that Beth's family had reserved, he lay beside his fiancée in the dark and pretended to sleep. Beth breathed evenly next to him, probably dreaming of wedding plans and honeymoon destinations. Josh stared at the ceiling and saw only Danielle's hands on that steering wheel, gripping so hard he thought she might break. A booster seat meant a child. A young child based on the size. 6 years was exactly long enough for... No. He stopped himself. He was grasping at fantasies, trying to build meaning from coincidence. Danielle had moved on. She'd found someone else, had a family, built a life that didn't include him. The universe had simply chosen the cruelest possible moment for their paths to cross again. But he couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd said 6 years, with an edge that cut deeper than anger, like those years had cost her something more than time. Josh reached for his phone on the nightstand, the screen's glow harsh in the darkness. He typed Danielle's name into the search bar and found a sparse profile that told him almost nothing. She drove for a rideshare company. She lived somewhere in the Riverside district across town. No relationship status, no photos of children. Just a profile picture where she stared at the camera with the same guarded expression she'd worn in the car. Beth stirred beside him. "Can't sleep." Josh set the phone down. "Just thinking about tomorrow. The meetings." She rolled closer, draping an arm across his chest. "Everything's going to be perfect. My father already has the contracts drawn up." Perfect. The word sat in Josh's chest like a stone. He closed his eyes and tried to forget the way Danielle's voice had sounded saying his name through the rain-streaked window. Tried to forget that booster seat. Tried to forget the 6 years of questions that had just multiplied into 6,000. He failed at all of it. Chapter 2. The Unraveling. The engagement weekend sprawled across the Mooney estate like an elaborate stage production. Saturday morning brought a brunch with 50 guests scattered across the east lawn, mimosas flowing while Beth's mother discussed flower arrangements and seating charts. Josh sat at the head table, nodding at appropriate intervals, his mind somewhere else entirely. "Josh?" Beth touched his arm. "Mrs. Fitzgerald asked about the honeymoon." He pulled his attention back to the elderly woman across the table, who was waiting for an answer to a question he hadn't heard. "We haven't finalized the details yet." "Oh, but you must go to the Amalfi Coast," Mrs. Fitzgerald gushed. "That's where my daughter went. Simply magical." Beth launched into a discussion of potential destinations while Josh's phone buzzed in his pocket. David's name flashed across the screen. He excused himself and walked toward the garden's edge, where manicured hedges provided an illusion of privacy. "Tell me you're not having second thoughts," David said before Josh could speak. "What are you talking about? You looked like a ghost last night. And now I'm hearing that Mr. Mooney wants to move up the merger timeline. He's talking about signing preliminary agreements next week instead of waiting until after the wedding." Josh's stomach tightened. "Why the rush?" "Because he's smart enough to lock this down before you do something stupid." David's voice dropped lower. "I ran the numbers again this morning. Without the Mooney capital injection, we have maybe 3 months before we're forced into bankruptcy proceedings. That's Janet, Ryan, everyone, all gone." Josh closed his eyes. Janet had been with the company since his father founded it. She'd brought cookies to the office every Friday, remembered everyone's birthdays, worked through her own mother's illness without missing a day. Ryan was 6 months away from retirement, his whole life wrapped up in a pension that would evaporate if the company collapsed. Then there was Marco, whose son needed special medical care that insurance barely covered. "I know the stakes," Josh said quietly. "Do you? Because something's off with you, and I need to know if we're solid here." "We're solid." Josh ended the call and stood there among the hedges, watching guests laugh and drink on the lawn. They all looked so certain, so comfortable in their expensive clothes and easy conversations. Nobody seemed to question whether this was the right path or just the expected one. "There you are." Beth appeared beside him, elegant in white linen. "You keep disappearing." "Sorry, business call." She studied his face with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You've been somewhere else all morning." "Actually, since last night." "What happened with your car?" Josh considered lying, but found he didn't have the energy. "I saw someone, in the Uber, someone I used to know." Beth's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Someone you used to know, or someone you used to be with?" "Does it matter?" "Probably not." She turned to look at the party behind them. "Everyone has a past, but we have a future, and that's what counts. Don't confuse nostalgia with reality." The words were reasonable, practical, exactly what Josh should believe, but they sat wrong in his chest like wearing a coat that didn't quite fit. "My father wants to move up the contract signing," Beth continued. "I think that's wise. Once the papers are signed, the merger becomes real. No more uncertainty." "I thought the wedding made it real." Beth's laugh was soft, knowing. "You and I both understand this is bigger than a wedding. The ceremony is for appearances. The contracts are what matter." Josh wanted to argue, to insist that marriage should mean more than strategic partnerships and quarterly projections. But Beth was already walking back toward the party, confident he would follow. And he did, because that's what he'd been doing for months, following the path that made sense on paper, even as it felt increasingly wrong in his bones. The afternoon brought more obligations. A tennis tournament that Josh lost in the first round because he couldn't focus. A wine tasting where he nodded along while experts discussed notes of oak and cherry. A formal dinner where Beth's father toasted their future with a speech that was really about market share and competitive advantages. Josh excused himself after dessert, claiming a headache. He found a quiet corner of the estate library and pulled out his phone. Danielle's profile stared back at him from the screen, offering no answers. He typed out a message, "I need to talk to you," then deleted it, typed another, "Please, can we meet?" Deleted that too. What right did he have to ask anything of her? She'd moved on, built a life without him. He was the one getting married in a few months, signing contracts next week, promising his future to someone else. But that booster seat wouldn't leave his mind, and the way Danielle had gripped the steering wheel, like she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. The library door opened. Beth's mother appeared, her smile professionally warm. "There you are." Beth was worried. Just needed some air. This must all be overwhelming. My own engagement felt like a 3-month performance. She settled into the chair across from him. But you'll adjust. Everyone does. Josh looked at this woman who'd been married to Beth's father for decades, who seemed perfectly content with a relationship built on social standing and financial security. Did you love him when you got married? The question was too personal, too direct, but Mrs. Mooney didn't flinch. I loved someone else, actually. A musician, completely impractical. She smoothed her dress, her voice matter-of-fact. But love doesn't pay the bills or build legacies. I chose security, and I've never regretted it. Never. Well, her smile turned wistful. Perhaps a few times, late at night when I hear a certain song. But those moments pass, and what remains is stability, comfort. That's worth more than passion that fades. Josh wondered if she truly believed that, or if she'd simply told herself the story so many times it had become true. He slept poorly that night, dreams filled with broken cars and rain-streaked windows, and Danielle's voice saying, 6 years, like an accusation. When he woke before dawn, Beth was already up, reviewing wedding binders with color-coded tabs and detailed timelines. We need to finalize the guest list, she said without looking up. And my mother wants to know if you prefer roses or peonies for the centerpieces. Josh stared at her, this woman he was supposed to marry, and realized he couldn't remember the last time they'd talked about anything that mattered. They discussed schedules and aesthetics and business advantages. They never talked about fears or dreams or what kept them awake at night. Beth. His voice came out rougher than intended. Are you happy? She finally looked up from the binder, genuine confusion crossing her face. What kind of question is that? A simple one. I'm content. I'm building something that will last. She set down her pen. Happiness is overrated. It's a feeling that comes and goes. What we have is more solid than happiness. Josh left the estate that afternoon, citing work obligations that didn't exist. The drive home took him past the Riverside district, and before he could talk himself out of it, he was circling the streets, looking for that modest sedan. He told himself he just needed closure, just needed to understand what happened 6 years ago. But as the sun set and the streetlights flickered on, Josh admitted the truth. He wasn't looking for closure. He was looking for Danielle, for that child in the booster seat, for the answers to questions he'd carried like open wounds since the day she disappeared. His phone rang. Beth's father. Josh let it go to voicemail, knowing it was probably about those contracts, about locking everything down before Josh could reconsider. The voicemail notification appeared. Josh didn't listen to it. Instead, he kept driving through Riverside, searching for a car he'd only seen once in 6 years, chasing a ghost he had no right to chase. Chapter 3. The Search. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of Josh making excuses to be in the Riverside district, of opening the rideshare app and requesting cars he didn't need. Different drivers appeared each time, college students earning extra money, retirees filling empty hours, people who weren't Danielle. The wedding planning accelerated around him. Beth scheduled cake tastings and venue walkthroughs. Her mother called daily with questions about reception music and invitation wording. The contract sat on Josh's desk, waiting for his signature, Mr. Mooney growing increasingly impatient with each delay. David cornered him in the office on a Thursday afternoon. What's going on with you? Mooney's assistant called me 3 times today asking why you haven't signed the preliminary agreements. I've been busy. Busy doing what? Because you're not here, you're barely answering emails, and you look like you haven't slept in days. David closed the office door. Talk to me. Josh wanted to explain about the Uber ride, about Danielle, about the suspicion that had taken root in his chest and wouldn't let go, but the words sounded crazy even in his own head. I'm fine, just processing everything. Process faster, we're running out of time. That night, Josh tried again. He requested an Uber from the same intersection where he'd first seen Danielle, hoping some algorithm might pair them together. A notification appeared. Driver arriving in 6 minutes. Josh's heart hammered as he watched the approaching car on the app's map. When the vehicle pulled up, a young guy with headphones was behind the wheel. Josh cancelled the ride, paid the fee, tried again. This became his routine. Request a ride, wait, cancel, repeat. His credit card accumulated cancellation charges. Beth asked why he was taking so many Ubers when his car had been fixed weeks ago. Josh invented excuses about parking and traffic that sounded hollow even to him. On the 15th night, his phone showed a car approaching. Josh watched the map, preparing for another disappointment. Then the vehicle arrived, and through the passenger window, he saw her. Danielle's face showed no surprise when Josh climbed into the back seat. She'd probably seen his name on the app, probably debated cancelling the ride herself. But here they were, separated by a few feet and 6 years of silence. Where to? Her voice was professional, distant. Just drive. That's not how this works. I need an address. Josh gave her a random intersection several miles away. Danielle entered it into the GPS without comment, then pulled into traffic. The silence felt different this time, charged, dangerous, like a wire pulled too tight. Josh studied the back of her head, the way her shoulders stayed rigid, defensive. I've been looking for you. I noticed. My app shows every time you cancel on other drivers in this neighborhood. So she knew. Of course she knew. I need to talk to you. We don't have anything to talk about. That's not true. Danielle's jaw tightened, visible in the rearview mirror. You're getting married. Congratulations, we done here. The booster seat. Josh forced the words out. You have a child. The car swerved slightly before Danielle corrected. That's none of your concern. How old? Drop it. Danielle, please. I need to know. You need to know nothing. Her voice cracked, the first real emotion breaking through. You have no right to ask about my life. You lost that right. What are you talking about? You're the one who left. Danielle pulled abruptly into a grocery store parking lot and slammed the car into park. She turned in her seat, finally looking at him directly. Her eyes held a mixture of anger and pain that made Josh's chest tighten. I went to your office, she said, each word deliberate. 6 years ago, I was going to tell you I was pregnant. I got off the elevator and heard you on the phone with your mother. Heard you say you'd handled the Danielle situation and that I was exactly the kind of distraction that destroys careers. So yes, I left. I handled it myself. Josh felt the ground drop away beneath him. The conversation rushed back with brutal clarity. His mother had discovered their relationship, demanded he end it because Danielle wasn't from their world. He'd told his mother he'd handled her interference, that he wouldn't break up with Danielle no matter what the family thought. You didn't hear the whole conversation, Josh said, the words tumbling out. I was defending you. Defending us. My mother wanted me to end things, and I told her I wouldn't. I was going to propose that week. Danielle's expression didn't change. That's a nice story. It's the truth. Josh pulled his wallet from his jacket, hands shaking as he extracted a small velvet box worn smooth at the edges. He'd carried it for 6 years, unable to throw it away. This was for you. I bought it the day before you disappeared. The ring caught the parking lot lights, a simple diamond that he'd chosen because Danielle hated anything ostentatious. She stared at it like it might bite her. You expect me to believe you've been carrying that around for 6 years? Look at the date inside the band. Danielle took the box with obvious reluctance, tilted the ring to catch the light. Josh knew what she'd find engraved there, her initials and a date from 6 years ago. The jeweler had finished it the day before Danielle vanished. Her hands started shaking. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything. I never said those things about you. I was in love with you. I was planning our future. Well, I saw a different future. Danielle shoved the ring back at him. I saw the engagement announcement in the paper. I saw you moved on just fine without me. So don't come here with some ring you've been carrying like a tragic hero who lost his great love. You made your choices. The engagement isn't what you think. Let me guess. Her voice dripped with contempt. It's complicated. It's for business. You don't really love her. Danielle laughed bitterly. You're marrying someone you don't love for money. That's even worse than what I thought. The company is failing. The confession spilled out before Josh could stop it. Without the merger, without the Mooney investment, everything my father built collapses. People lose their jobs, families lose their income. I'm trying to save all of that. By sacrificing yourself. How noble. Danielle started the car again. Your destination is still 10 minutes away. We can ride in silence or you can get out here. Josh didn't move. I never stopped thinking about you. But you stopped looking for me. Danielle pulled back onto the road, eyes fixed forward. I disappeared and you accepted it. You built a new life with a new woman, and now you want me to feel sorry for you because that life isn't what you wanted. I spent 6 years building something from nothing. I worked 2 jobs while pregnant. I put myself through night school while raising a daughter alone. I didn't have the luxury of carrying around a ring and feeling tragic. The word hung in the air between them. Daughter. She's mine, isn't she? Danielle's silence was confirmation enough. They reached the destination Josh had randomly selected. Danielle stopped the car, her hand hovering over the button to end the ride. Stay away from us. You're getting married. You have obligations. I won't let you mess up my daughter's life because you're having some crisis of conscience. Josh opened his door but didn't get out. What's her name? Goodbye, Josh. He stood on the sidewalk and watched Danielle drive away for the second time in 6 years. But this time was different. This time he knew the truth. He had a daughter somewhere in this city, a child he'd never met, a piece of himself walking around in the world. His phone buzzed. Beth. Where are you? We have the florist meeting in 20 minutes. Josh stared at the message, then at the street where Danielle's car had disappeared. The ring box sat heavy in his pocket, that promise from 6 years ago still waiting to be fulfilled or finally abandoned. He called another Uber to take him to the florist meeting, where he would smile and nod while Beth selected centerpieces for a wedding that suddenly felt like a funeral. Chapter 4. The daughter Josh spent the next 3 days searching online for any trace of Danielle's life. Her social media profiles were sparse, carefully curated to reveal nothing personal. But property records showed an address in Riverside and school registration databases, accessed through connections Josh probably shouldn't have used, revealed where a 5-year-old named Alana Gibson attended kindergarten. He told himself he just needed to see her once, just needed to confirm what his heart already knew. Then he'd walk away, let Danielle raise their daughter in peace, marry Beth as planned, and live with the consequences of timing that had destroyed everything. But on Thursday afternoon, Josh found himself parked across from Riverside Elementary, watching parents gather for pickup. He felt like a criminal, like he was doing something terrible instead of waiting to see his own child. Assuming she was his child. Assuming Danielle hadn't moved on immediately, found someone else, built the family she'd wanted with a better man. The school doors opened. Children streamed out in a chaos of backpacks and laughter. Josh scanned the crowd, looking for... There. A little girl with his eyes, his smile, his exact way of tilting her head when she was curious. She wore a purple backpack almost as big as she was and clutched a piece of construction paper covered in paint. When Danielle appeared and crouched down to greet her, the girl launched into an animated story about something that had happened during art class. Josh couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch as Danielle laughed at something Alana said, helped adjust the too heavy backpack, held her daughter's hand as they walked toward the parking lot. The tenderness between them was everything he'd lost, everything he'd never known he'd had. He should have left then, should have driven away and let them disappear into their life without him. Instead, he followed them to a nearby park. Danielle buckled Alana into a booster seat, the same one Josh had seen in the Uber, and drove 3 blocks to a playground. Josh parked at a distance and watched as Alana ran toward the swings, Danielle following at a more sedate pace. Mother and daughter, a complete unit that had no space for him. Josh got out of his car before he could reconsider. His legs carried him across the grass, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. He didn't have a plan, didn't know what he'd say. He just needed to be closer to this miracle he'd helped create. Danielle saw him when he was still 20 feet away. Her entire body went rigid, and she immediately positioned herself between Josh and the playground where Alana was climbing on the structure. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low, dangerous. "I needed to see her. You need to leave, right now." "Danielle, please." "No." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a furious whisper. "You don't get to show up at her school. You don't get to follow us. She's my daughter, and you have no right." "She's mine, too." The words came out rougher than Josh intended. "You know she is." Danielle's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "Biology doesn't make you a father." "Then let me be one." Josh hadn't planned to say it, but once the words were out, he knew they were true. "Let me know her. I won't interfere with your life. I won't make demands. I just want to be part of hers. You're getting married in a few months." "I know. To someone else." "I know. So, what exactly are you proposing here? That you play daddy on weekends while building a life with another woman? That our daughter becomes some secret you keep from your real family?" Danielle's voice cracked. "I won't let you do that to her." "Mama!" Alana's voice carried across the playground. "Come push me!" Danielle wiped her eyes quickly, forced a smile. "1 second, baby." She turned back to Josh. "You need to decide what you want, but you don't get to waltz into our lives without making a choice. And right now you're choosing someone else." She started to walk away. Josh's voice stopped her. "What if I told you I was wrong? That I've been wrong this whole time?" Danielle looked back over her shoulder. "Then prove it. But don't come back here until you do." She walked to the swings where Alana waited. Josh stood frozen, watching Danielle push their daughter higher and higher, Alana's delighted squeals carrying on the breeze. He memorized every detail, the way Alana's hair flew behind her, the way Danielle laughed at something their daughter said, the easy love between them that he'd missed by not hearing a complete conversation 6 years ago. His phone buzzed. "Beth, running late to dinner. Order wine." Josh looked at the message, then at the playground. He couldn't have both. Couldn't save the company and claim this family. Couldn't marry Beth and be the father Alana deserved. The math didn't work, no matter how many times he tried to calculate a solution. But watching his daughter on those swings, watching the life he should have had play out 20 feet away, Josh started to understand which equation mattered more. He left the park before Danielle noticed, but not before taking one last look at Alana, at her purple backpack and paint-stained hands, and the pure joy on her face as she flew through the air. That night at dinner, Beth talked about honeymoon destinations while Josh moved food around his plate. She asked his opinion about Italy versus Greece, and he said whatever sounded good to her. She asked if he preferred morning or evening ceremony times, and he said whatever worked best for the photographers. Finally, Beth set down her fork. "Where are you?" Josh looked at his fiancée, this woman he was supposed to build a future with, and realized he couldn't remember what her favorite flower was. Couldn't remember what she'd studied in college, what she dreamed about, what kept her awake at night. They'd been engaged for months, and he knew nothing about her except that marrying her would save everything his father had built. "I saw her today," Josh said. "My daughter." Beth's face went carefully blank. "Your daughter?" "I have a daughter. She's 5. Her name is Alana." "I see." Beth took a slow sip of wine. "And the mother?" "Someone I was with before. Someone I thought had left me. But it was a misunderstanding." The explanation sounded pathetic even to Josh's ears. "She was pregnant when she left. She never told me." "How convenient." Beth's voice remained eerily calm. "And now she's reappeared right as you're getting married." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Josh had no answer. Beth nodded slowly, as if he'd confirmed something she already suspected. My father warned me this might happen, she said. Men get cold feet. They find reasons to sabotage things. A child from a previous relationship is certainly dramatic. She signaled for the check. But here's what I know. You made a commitment. Not just to me, but to our families, to the company, to everyone depending on this merger. One night of nostalgia doesn't change that. It's not nostalgia. Josh's voice came out sharper than intended. She's my daughter. And what do you plan to do about that? Beth leaned forward. Walk away from everything? Let your father's company collapse so you can play house with some woman who didn't even tell you she was pregnant? The words stung because they weren't entirely wrong. Josh was caught between two impossible choices, and every direction looked like betrayal. Beth stood, collecting her purse. Think very carefully about your next move, because once you make certain decisions, there's no taking them back. She left Josh sitting alone at the table with an untouched meal and a bill he didn't remember ordering. His phone showed a dozen messages, from David about the contracts, from Beth's mother about centerpiece options, from his own mother demanding to know why he'd been seen in Riverside. But all Josh could think about was Alana's face as she flew through the air on those swings, complete and happy in a life that had no room for him. He pulled out the ring box, stared at the promise he'd been carrying for 6 years. Danielle had said to prove it, to make a choice. Josh just didn't know if he was brave enough to choose correctly this time. Chapter 5. The impossible equation. The office felt like a prison. Josh sat at his father's old desk, his desk now, surrounded by financial reports that told the same story in different variations. The company was dying. Each page was another nail in the coffin his father had spent a lifetime building. David walked in without knocking, which meant the news was bad. The bank called. They want to accelerate the loan repayment schedule. On what grounds? They've heard rumors we're unstable. Someone's been talking. David tossed a folder onto the desk. Also, the Riverside property deal fell through. That's another revenue stream gone. Josh flipped through the documents, numbers blurring together. Without the Mooney capital injection, they had maybe 2 months before bankruptcy proceedings became inevitable. Not 3. Not even close to 3. Where are we with alternative investors? Josh asked, though he already knew the answer. Same response everywhere. Your debt-to-asset ratio is terrible. Nobody wants to touch us. David leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. The only play left is Mooney, and you're running out of time to close that deal. Beth's father called me yesterday asking if there was a problem. What did you tell him? That you were finalizing details. But he's not stupid. He knows something's off. David's voice softened slightly. Talk to me. What's going on? Josh wanted to explain about Alana, about watching her on the playground, about the crushing weight of choosing between the life he'd built and the life he'd lost. But David was his business partner, not his therapist, and the employees depending on them didn't care about Josh's personal drama. I'm fine, just working through some things. Work faster. David headed for the door, then paused. Janet stopped by this morning. She wanted to thank you for keeping the company stable through everything. She's been here since your father started this place. She remembers when you were a kid coming to the office during summer breaks. He met Josh's eyes. These aren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They're lives, don't forget that. After David left, Josh pulled up the employee roster. 70 names, 70 people with families and mortgages and kids in college. Janet, who'd been loyal to his father through market crashes and expansion failures. Ryan, counting down the months until retirement. Marco, whose son needed specialized care that would be impossible without company health insurance. Josh started making calls. He contacted every venture capital firm he had connections with, pitched new strategies and restructuring plans. Each conversation ended the same way. The risk was too high, the timeline too short, the fundamentals too weak. By the end of the day, his voice was hoarse and his hope was non-existent. The alternative was sitting in his email inbox. A message from Mr. Mooney's attorney. Preliminary merger agreements attached. Please review and sign by end of week. Josh opened the documents. They were remarkably simple for something so life-altering. Sign here, marry Beth, receive capital injection, save company. A straightforward transaction dressed up in legal language. His phone buzzed, a notification from the rideshare app. Your driver Danielle is in your area. Josh stared at the notification. He'd kept his account open, kept his phone tracking his location, hoping for exactly this. Before he could overthink it, he requested a ride to nowhere in particular. She accepted. 10 minutes away. Josh grabbed his jacket and headed downstairs, his heart hammering. The evening air was cool, the street busy with people leaving offices and heading home to families who expected them. Josh wondered if any of them were trapped between impossible choices, or if that particular torture was reserved for people stupid enough to let love slip away the first time. Danielle's car appeared. Josh climbed in before he could reconsider. Where to? Her voice was professionally neutral, but Josh caught the slight tension in her shoulders. Just drive. We did this already. It didn't end well. I need to talk to you. We don't have anything to talk about. But she pulled into traffic anyway, heading toward the river district. Josh studied her reflection in the rearview mirror. I went to the park. I saw her. Danielle's hands tightened on the wheel. I know. She asked me who the man watching us was. Guilt twisted in Josh's chest. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare her. What did you mean to do? I don't know. Josh leaned forward. I just needed to see her, to know she's real, to understand what I lost. You didn't lose anything. You were never part of it. The words stung because they were true. Josh had spent 6 years building a life that looked successful on paper, while his real life, his daughter, his chance at something genuine, grew up without him. I've been trying to find another way, he said, to save the company without marrying Beth, but the numbers don't work. I've called every investor I know. The debt is too high, the timeline too short. Without the Mooney merger, everything collapses. Danielle pulled over near the riverfront and turned in her seat. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand. This isn't just about me. It's about the people who've worked for my family for decades. People who depend on the company for their health insurance, their retirement, their kids' educations. If I walk away, they lose everything. So you're asking my permission to marry someone else? Danielle's voice was flat. You want me to absolve you of guilt so you can sleep better at night? No. I'm asking you to help me understand if there's any possible way. There isn't. Danielle cut him off. You can't have both. You can't save your company and be a father to Alana. You can't marry Beth and be with me. Life doesn't work that way. So stop trying to find some perfect solution where nobody gets hurt. Her voice cracked. Somebody's going to get hurt. The only question is who. Josh felt the weight of that truth settle over him. What if I choose wrong? Then you live with it, just like I've been living with your choice for the past 6 years. They sat in silence, the river moving past the car windows, indifferent to human complications. Finally, Josh spoke. Tell me about her. About Alana. No. Please. I just want to know. She loves purple. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up, even though she's terrified of dogs. She has your smile and your terrible habit of tilting her head when she's thinking. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Danielle's voice wavered. And she deserves better than a father who shows up when it's convenient, who treats her like an obligation he fits into his real life. So unless you're prepared to be all in, stay away from us. What if I want to be all in? Then prove it. Danielle started the car again. But stop coming to me looking for answers. This is your choice to make. She drove Josh back to his office in silence. When he got out, she didn't say goodbye. Just drove away like she'd done so many times before, leaving Josh standing on the sidewalk with his phone showing those unsigned merger documents waiting in his inbox. That night, Josh tried to work through the numbers one more time. He liquidated his personal investment portfolio. Not enough. He called his mother to ask about releasing his trust fund early. She refused unless he signed those contracts. He considered selling his condo, his car, everything he owned, still not enough to save the company. The math was unforgiving. No matter how many times he ran the calculations, they told him the same thing. He needed the Mooney money or everything collapsed. Around midnight, Josh drove to Danielle's apartment building. He didn't go up, just sat in his car looking at the windows where lights still glowed. Somewhere up there, Alana was probably asleep in her purple bedroom, if she even had a purple bedroom. Josh didn't know. Didn't know if she liked pancakes or waffles for breakfast, if she could ride a bike, if she was afraid of thunderstorms. He'd missed 5 years of her life. Every first word, first step, first day of school. All the moments that made her who she was had happened without him. His phone buzzed. A message from Beth. "My father wants to know if you're signing the contracts this week." Josh typed 3 different responses and deleted them all. Finally, he wrote, "Need a few more days." Beth replied immediately, "You don't have a few more days." She was right. The clock was running out on all his choices. Soon, Josh would have to stop searching for perfect solutions and make a decision that would destroy something precious, no matter which direction he turned. He drove home as the sun started rising, went through the motions of showering and dressing, and arrived at the office to find David already at his desk. "The Mooney contracts," David said without preamble. "Tell me you're signing them today." Josh looked at his business partner, at the framed photo of the company's founding team behind David's desk, at the weight of legacy pressing down on every decision. "I'm trying. Try harder. Because I just got notice that our largest supplier is demanding payment up front instead of the usual terms. Word is out that we're unstable. We're running out of time to fix this." Josh closed his office door and sat down at his father's desk. He opened his laptop, pulled up those contracts, and stared at the signature line that represented every safe, responsible, expected choice. Then he closed the laptop, grabbed his keys, and drove back to Riverside. To the park, where he'd watched Alana on the swings, to the elementary school where she learned and played and grew, to all the places where his real life was happening without him. He still didn't know what he was going to choose, but sitting in his father's office pretending the answer was obvious felt like its own kind of death. Chapter 6. The investigation. The call came during a wedding menu tasting. Josh sat between Beth and her mother, while a chef presented 7 different entree options, each with carefully paired wine selections. His phone vibrated against his thigh, Mr. Mooney's name flashing on the screen. "Excuse me." Josh stood, ignoring Beth's irritated glance. He stepped into the restaurant's hallway. "Hello?" "My office, now." The line went dead. Josh returned to the table where 3 generations of Mooney women were debating whether beef tenderloin or Chilean sea bass better represented their family legacy. "I have to go. Emergency meeting." "Now." Beth's mother looked personally offended. "We're discussing your wedding." "I'm sorry. Business can't wait." Josh kissed Beth's cheek, a gesture that felt increasingly performative, and headed for his car. The Mooney building dominated the financial district, all glass and steel and money. Josh had been here dozens of times for meetings about the merger, each visit reinforcing how different their worlds were. The Mooneys built empires. Josh was trying to save one crumbling legacy. Mr. Mooney's assistant didn't smile when Josh arrived, just gestured toward the corner office where Beth's father held court. Through the glass walls, Josh could see 2 other people inside, Beth and a man in an expensive suit who radiated private investigator. Josh's stomach dropped. "Sit down." Mr. Mooney didn't stand, didn't offer pleasantries. He slid a manila folder across his desk. "Open it." Inside were photos. Josh and Danielle at the park. Josh sitting in her car during one of those tense conversations. Josh outside Alana's school. Each image was time-stamped and annotated with locations. The investigation had been thorough. "Care to explain?" Mr. Mooney's voice was ice. Josh looked at Beth, who sat perfectly composed in a leather chair, her face revealing nothing. "How long have you known? Does it matter?" She crossed her legs, elegant even in this moment of confrontation. "My father wanted to be sure he was making a sound investment. Turns out he was right to check. This is who you've been sneaking around to see?" Mr. Mooney tapped one of the photos showing Danielle. "Some rideshare driver with a kid?" The dismissive tone ignited something in Josh's chest. "That's the mother of my daughter. Your daughter." Mr. Mooney said it like Josh had claimed to own the moon. "You expect me to believe you didn't know about this child until recently?" "I didn't. Her mother left 6 years ago. She never told me she was pregnant." "How convenient." Mr. Mooney leaned back in his chair. "And now she's reappeared right as you're about to marry into money. Strange timing, don't you think?" "It wasn't like that. It was coincidence." "I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in opportunists who see a payday." Mr. Mooney's voice hardened. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to cut all contact with this woman and her child. You're going to sign the merger contracts we've been waiting on. And you're going to marry my daughter in 2 months as planned." Josh felt the walls closing in. "And if I don't? Then the deal is off. Your company collapses, your employees lose their jobs, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you destroyed your father's legacy over a woman who couldn't be bothered to tell you she was pregnant." Mr. Mooney stood, signaling the meeting's end. "Not much of a choice, is it? I need time to think." "You've had time. Make a decision." Josh looked at Beth again, hoping for some sign of empathy or understanding. She met his gaze steadily. "My father's right. You need to decide what matters more. And if I decide the answer is my daughter, then I hope she's worth it." Beth's voice remained even. "Because everything else will be gone." Josh left the office feeling like he'd been filleted open. The investigator's photos sat heavy in his mind, proof that he'd been living 2 lives, failing at both. He drove aimlessly, eventually finding himself back in Riverside, parked across from Danielle's apartment building. He called her. She didn't answer. He called again. Still nothing. Finally, a text appeared. "Stop calling. You're making things worse." Josh typed back, "I need to see you. No, please. They know about you. About Alana. I need to explain. You need to stay away. I mean it, Josh." But Josh couldn't stay away. He waited outside her building until she emerged for her evening driving shift. She saw his car immediately and changed direction, walking toward the next block. Josh followed on foot. "Danielle, wait." She spun around, fury in her eyes. "Are you seriously following me now, after everything?" "Beth's father hired an investigator. They have photos of us. They know about Alana. Good for them. Now they know what I've known for 6 years. You come from a world that has no space for people like me." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Danielle's laugh was bitter. "You want to talk about fair? I just got a call from my landlord. Apparently someone made inquiries about my lease, my employment history, my finances. Let me guess. Mooney's investigator." She stepped closer, voice dropping to a furious whisper. "They're building a file on me, making sure you understand I'm not good enough, not respectable enough, not worthy of their precious merger." Josh felt sick. "I'll tell them to back off." "It doesn't matter. Don't you see?" Danielle's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "This is what I was trying to protect Alana from. This exact situation where she becomes ammunition in someone else's war, where people look at her and see a problem to be solved instead of a child who deserves better. I won't let them treat her that way. Then stop them. Stop playing both sides. Stop showing up in our lives while planning a wedding to someone else." Danielle's voice broke. "You're engaged, Josh. You have contracts to sign, and investors to satisfy, and a company to save. So save it, but leave us out of it." "What if I can't?" "You're going to have to, because I won't let you do this to Alana. I won't let her grow up thinking she's someone's secret shame, someone's inconvenient truth." Danielle wiped her eyes angrily. "My daughter deserves a father who's proud of her, who shows up completely or not at all, You can't be that person while you're building a life with the Moonies. Josh wanted to argue, to insist he could find a way, but standing there in the parking lot with investigator photos still burning in his mind and Danielle looking at him like he'd already made his choice, the words died in his throat. They gave me an ultimatum, he said quietly. Cut all contact with you and Alana, or they kill the merger. Well? Danielle's voice was hollow. Sounds like you have your answer. I haven't decided yet. Yes, you have. You just haven't admitted it. She turned toward her car. Goodbye, Josh. Danielle, wait. She didn't wait, just got in her car and drove away, leaving Josh standing alone in the parking lot as the sun set over Riverside. His phone buzzed with messages from David, from Beth's mother, from the attorney handling the merger documents. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone needed decisions. But all Josh could think about was the look in Danielle's eyes when she'd said, goodbye. Not angry anymore, just tired. Like she'd already mourned what they could have been and was ready to move on. That night, Josh sat in his condo with Mr. Mooney's ultimatum ringing in his ears. Cut contact or lose everything. Choose your daughter or choose the company. As if love and responsibility existed in separate universes that could never touch. His mother called. Josh sent it to voicemail. She called again and again. Finally, he answered. I heard about the Mooney meeting, she said without preamble. I'm glad they're being sensible about this. Sensible? Yes. You have obligations, responsibilities that supersede personal complications. Your father built something important. You can't throw that away. Josh looked around his expensive condo at all the trappings of success that suddenly felt hollow. What if Dad was wrong? What if building an empire isn't worth losing everything that matters? His mother's silence was sharp. Don't be dramatic. You're not losing everything. You're making a choice that protects what your father spent his life creating. And what about what I'm spending my life destroying? You're being emotional. That woman and her child will be fine. People move on. You'll move on. Her voice softened slightly, which somehow made it worse. I know this feels difficult now, but in a few years you'll barely remember this. You'll have a life with Beth, a secure future, a legacy you can be proud of. What if I don't want that legacy? Then you're a fool. The line went dead. Josh sat in the dark and thought about the life his mother had just described. Comfortable, secure, empty. He thought about Alana on the swings, about Danielle's hands gripping that steering wheel, about 6 years of carrying a ring he'd never gotten to give. Then he thought about Janet thanking him for keeping the company stable, about Marco's son who needed specialized care, about Ryan who was 6 months from retirement, about all the lives tangled up in his choice. The merger contracts sat open on his laptop. All he had to do was sign, save the company, marry Beth, cut contact with Danielle and Alana, live with the consequences. Josh pulled out that worn ring box and stared at the promise inside. Then he made a decision that would either save everything or destroy it all. He started typing an email. Chapter 7. The Daughter's Awareness. Alana didn't ask if Josh was her father. She just started acting like he already was. It began with small things Danielle noticed during their evening routine. Alana started drawing pictures with 3 people instead of 2. A tall figure, a smaller figure with long hair, and a tiny figure with a purple backpack. She asked questions about daddies during bedtime stories, wanted to know why some kids had them and others didn't. Emma's dad picked her up from school today, Alana said one night while Danielle brushed her hair. He brought her ice cream. That's nice. Why don't I have a dad who brings me ice cream? Danielle's hands stilled. You have a dad, baby. He just lives somewhere else. Why doesn't he live here? The question was innocent, but it carved through Danielle like a knife. How did she explain to a 5-year-old that her father was about to marry someone else? That he existed in a world where Alana would always be an inconvenient truth? It's complicated. Emma says her parents were married but aren't anymore. Are you and my dad married? No, sweetheart, we were never married. Alana processed this, her young mind working through concepts too big for her age. Does he know about me? He does now. Then why doesn't he come see me? The question was asked with such pure curiosity, such complete absence of understanding why any parent wouldn't want to be with their child, that Danielle felt tears burn behind her eyes. He has other things he needs to take care of right now. More important than me? There it was, the question Danielle had been dreading, the one that would define how Alana saw herself for the rest of her life. She pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of grape shampoo and childhood innocence. Nothing is more important than you, not to me, never to me. But to him, Danielle closed her eyes. Your dad is trying to figure some things out. It's not about you not being important. It's about grown-up things being complicated. I don't think being a dad should be complicated, Alana said with the devastating clarity children possessed. Emma's dad just shows up. That's it. After Alana fell asleep, Danielle sat at her kitchen table with her phone showing Josh's contact information. She'd blocked him twice already and unblocked him just as quickly, unable to fully sever the connection, even though every rational thought said she should. Her thumb hovered over the call button. She wanted to scream at him for disrupting their life, for making Alana question why she wasn't enough to make him stay. But she also understood the impossible position he was in, trapped between saving a company and claiming a daughter he'd never known existed. Danielle didn't call. Instead, she did what she'd been doing for 6 years. Handled it herself. The next day, she enrolled Alana in after-school art classes. More activities meant less time for questions Danielle couldn't answer. She picked up extra driving shifts, working late into the night when her daughter was safely asleep. Exhaustion was easier than thinking, but Alana's awareness kept growing. She started pointing out dads everywhere, at the grocery store, at the park, in the cars that pulled up for school pickup. Each observation felt like an indictment, a reminder of what Danielle couldn't provide, no matter how hard she worked. Josh called one afternoon while Danielle was between rides. Against her better judgment, she answered. I need to see her, he said without preamble. Properly, not hiding in parking lots or watching from a distance. I need to meet my daughter. Now you decide this? After your in-laws hired investigators and threatened you? That's not why. Then why? Because Alana is starting to ask questions I can't answer. She wants to know why she doesn't have a dad who shows up. And I'm running out of ways to explain that you exist, but you're not actually available. Josh's voice was rough. Let me talk to her. Let me explain. Explain what? That you're marrying someone else, but you'll try to fit her in when it's convenient. That she's your daughter, but she has to stay secret because she doesn't fit into your real life. Danielle's voice rose. She's 5 years old, Josh. She doesn't understand nuance. She just knows she wants a dad, and you keep showing up and leaving, showing up and leaving. It's cruel. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it's what you're doing. So either commit to being her father, actually being present and involved and proud of her, or walk away now before she gets more attached. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Josh said, What if I can't walk away? Then figure out how to stay, but do it soon, because every day you don't decide is another day. She wonders why she's not worth fighting for. Danielle ended the call and sat in her car, hands shaking. She was asking Josh to make a choice that would cost him everything. And she was asking it for a daughter who didn't fully understand what was at stake, who just wanted someone to push her on the swings and bring her ice cream and show up like Emma's dad did. That evening, Alana asked if they could make cookies. Danielle agreed, grateful for the distraction. They mixed ingredients, making a mess of the tiny kitchen. Alana chatted about school, about her friend Sophia, who had a new puppy, about how she wanted to learn to ride a bike without training wheels. Can dads teach kids to ride bikes? Alana asked, licking chocolate chips from her fingers. Sure, mums can too. But dads are better at it, right? Because they're taller? Danielle forced a smile. Height has nothing to do with it. I'll teach you when you're ready. Emma's dad is teaching her. He runs beside her and catches her if she falls. Alana looked up with those eyes that were exactly Josh's. Would my dad do that? I don't know, baby. Could we ask him? The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. Danielle realized she couldn't keep deflecting. Alana deserved honesty, even if the truth was complicated. Your dad wants to be part of your life, Danielle said carefully. But he's figuring out how to make that happen. Grown-ups sometimes have to solve problems before they can do what they want to do. What problems? Big ones, the kind that take time to fix. How much time? I don't know. Alana returned her attention to the cookie dough, apparently satisfied with this non-answer. But Danielle felt the weight of her daughter's patience, the way Alana was willing to wait for a father who might never fully show up. After cookies and bath time and 3 bedtime stories, Danielle sat alone in the living room and allowed herself to imagine an alternate universe where Josh had heard that complete phone conversation 6 years ago, where he'd proposed as planned, where they'd raised Alana together, where her daughter had never needed to ask why some kids had dads and others didn't. Her phone buzzed. A text from Josh. I'm working on something. Please don't give up on me. Danielle stared at the message. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he was fighting as hard as she'd fought for the past 6 years. But words were easy. Showing up was hard. She typed back, Alana asked if you could teach her to ride a bike. I told her I'd do it. Josh's response came immediately. Let me, please. You're getting married in less than 2 months. How exactly does teaching our daughter to ride a bike fit into that timeline? No response. Danielle wasn't surprised. The math didn't work. It never had. She fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from working double shifts and fielding impossible questions. She dreamed of the day she'd gone to Josh's office 6 years ago, heart racing with the news of her pregnancy. In the dream, she heard the complete conversation instead of fragments. She saw Josh defend their relationship, saw him choose her instead of his family's expectations. Then she woke up to morning light and Alana asking what they were having for breakfast, and the dream dissolved into the harder reality where choices had consequences and love wasn't always enough. Danielle made pancakes, Alana's favorite, and listened to her daughter chatter about the upcoming field trip to the zoo. Somewhere across town, Josh was probably getting ready for another day of merger meetings and wedding planning. 2 separate lives that had collided briefly 6 years ago and again recently, but couldn't seem to stay connected. That afternoon, Danielle drove past Josh's office building during a lull between ride requests. She didn't stop, didn't call, just looked up at the glass and steel structure where Josh was probably sitting at his father's desk, trying to solve an equation that had no good answer. Her phone rang. A ride request from Riverside Elementary. Danielle accepted it, drove to the school, and picked up a tired kindergartner who wanted to know if they could go to the park. They went. Danielle pushed Alana on the swings until her daughter's legs pumped on their own, flying higher and higher, laughing with the pure joy of forward motion. Look, Mama, I'm flying. Danielle watched her daughter soar against the sunset sky and thought about Josh's text. I'm working on something. She hoped it was enough, hoped he was brave enough to choose correctly this time. But mostly, she just pushed her daughter higher and tried not to think about fathers who promised to show up but hadn't figured out how yet. Chapter 8. The Mother's Truth. Josh drove to his mother's estate on a Sunday morning, the day after another tense wedding planning meeting where Beth's mother had shown him centerpiece options and he'd agreed to whatever she suggested. The property looked exactly as it had his entire life. Manicured lawns, ancient oak trees, the kind of old money elegance that was supposed to make a person feel secure. Instead, Josh felt suffocated. His mother received him in the East sitting room, the same place where she'd demanded he end his relationship with Danielle 6 years ago. She sat in her usual chair, perfectly composed, a pot of tea already prepared. "This is unexpected," she said as Josh entered. "You usually call before visiting. I need to talk to you about something. The Moonies told me about your little complication." She poured tea into delicate china cups. "I assume that's why you're here." Josh remained standing. You destroyed my life 6 years ago. His mother's hand paused briefly before continuing to pour. Don't be dramatic. I was going to propose to Danielle. I bought a ring. I was planning our future. Then you found out about the relationship and demanded I end it. Because it was inappropriate. She was from a completely different world. You were jeopardizing everything your father built for some temporary infatuation. It wasn't temporary. Josh's voice rose. I loved her. I was defending our relationship when she overheard me on the phone. She thought I'd chosen you over her, so she left. She was pregnant, and she left because of a misunderstanding that you created. His mother set down the teapot with careful precision. Lower your voice. The staff can hear you. I don't care about the staff. I care that you destroyed the best thing in my life because it didn't fit your vision of what was appropriate. Josh moved closer. I have a daughter. Her name is Alana. She's 5 years old, and I've never met her because of choices you made. Choices you made, his mother corrected. You could have fought harder. You could have gone after her. Instead, you accepted that the relationship was over and moved on with your life. That's hardly my fault. The casual dismissal ignited something in Josh's chest. You're right. I should have fought harder. I should have told you to go to hell 6 years ago, but I was 25 and stupid, and I thought family loyalty meant something. It does mean something. Not when it destroys the people we're supposed to love. Josh's hands were shaking. You know what Alana asked Danielle? She asked why she doesn't have a dad who shows up. And Danielle can't answer that question because I'm too afraid to make a choice that disappoints you. His mother's face remained impassive. So you've come here for what? My blessing to abandon your responsibilities? Permission to throw away everything for this woman and her child? I came here to tell you that your way of living, where duty and obligation matter more than love, is empty. It's hollow. And I refuse to repeat your mistakes. My mistakes? Now emotion flickered across his mother's face. I raised you after your father died. I kept this family together through impossible circumstances. I protected the company when everyone said we should sell. Those aren't mistakes. You also drove away everyone who loved you. Dad spent more time at the office than home, because you made this house feel like a museum instead of a family. I barely knew him before he died, and now you want me to do the same thing, choose legacy over love, duty over happiness. His mother stood, her composure cracking slightly. Your father and I had an understanding. We built something that mattered. Did you love him? The question hung between them. His mother's jaw tightened. Love is complicated. That's not an answer. Love isn't always enough. Respect, partnership, shared goals, those things matter more in the long run. Josh felt suddenly terribly sad for this woman who'd spent her entire life building walls instead of bridges. I used to think you were strong, but now I realize you're just terrified. Terrified of anything you can't control, anything that doesn't fit into your perfect image of how life should look. Don't project your fears onto me. You're the one who can't make a decision. You're right. I've been paralyzed because every option feels like betrayal. But watching you right now, seeing how lonely you are in this big house with your perfect furniture and your rigid rules, I finally understand which betrayal I can't live with. His mother's face went pale. If you walk away from the Mooney merger, you walk away from this family, from the company, from everything your father built. I know. You'll destroy 70 jobs. You'll lose the house, the investments, everything. For what? A woman who didn't even tell you she was pregnant. For my daughter. For the chance to be the kind of father I wish I'd had. For a life that actually means something instead of just looking impressive from the outside. You're a fool. Maybe. But I'd rather be a fool who tried than someone who spent their whole life playing it safe and ended up alone. The words struck home. His mother flinched, genuine hurt crossing her features before she locked it down. Get out. Mom, get out. You want to destroy everything? Fine, but don't expect me to watch. Josh moved toward the door, then paused. I'm sorry you never found what I found with Danielle. I'm sorry Dad wasn't the partner you deserved. But your unhappiness doesn't get to dictate my life anymore. You'll regret this. When the company collapses and your employees hate you and you're left with nothing, you'll realize I was right. Josh left without responding. He walked through the grand foyer with its crystal chandelier and expensive art, past the formal dining room where they'd eaten silent dinners after his father's funeral, through the front door and into the daylight. His phone buzzed immediately. Beth's father. Your mother just called. We need to talk. Josh drove straight to the Mooney building. Mr. Mooney's assistant showed him into the office where Beth waited with her father. Both wore expressions that said they'd been expecting this conversation. So you've decided, Mr. Mooney said without preamble. I haven't signed anything yet. But you've told your mother you're walking away. That's as good as a decision. Mr. Mooney leaned back in his leather chair. Let me lay out what happens next. I withdraw the merger offer. Your company enters bankruptcy proceedings within weeks. Your employees file for unemployment. Your father's legacy gets sold off in pieces to the highest bidders, and you get to explain to everyone why you chose a woman you barely know over their livelihoods. Each word was designed to wound, and they did. Josh thought of Janet, of Ryan, of Marco's son who needed medical care. There has to be another way, Josh said. There isn't. You've run out of options except the one you're too proud to take. Mr. Mooney stood. Here's your choice. Marry Beth, sign the contracts, save the company, or walk away and live with the consequences. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Dad. Beth spoke for the first time, her voice quiet. Give us a minute. Mr. Mooney looked between them, then nodded curtly and left. The office felt larger with just the two of them, the city spreading out beyond the windows like evidence of everything Josh was about to lose. You love her, Beth said. It wasn't a question. I do. And the child? You want to be her father. More than anything. Beth walked to the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. I've spent my whole life doing what was expected. The right schools, the right internships, the right marriage to the right man from the right family. It never occurred to me to do anything else. Beth, let me finish. She turned to face him. I don't love you. I respect you. I like you well enough. I thought we could build something stable together. But love? She shook her head. My mother told me love doesn't matter as much as security, and I believed her because it made the choice easier. So why are you telling me this? Because watching you struggle, seeing how much you're willing to lose for someone you actually love, makes me realize I've been settling my entire life, and maybe you shouldn't. Josh stared at this woman he'd been planning to marry, seeing her clearly for the first time. Your father will never forgive me. Probably not. He'll be furious. He'll pull the merger, probably blacklist you in business circles just out of spite. Beth's smile was sad. But you'll survive. And more importantly, you'll survive with something real instead of this hollow imitation we were building. What about you? I'll be fine. Maybe I'll finally figure out what I actually want instead of what everyone expects me to want. She collected her purse. For what it's worth, I hope she's everything you think she is. I hope your daughter is worth destroying your life for. Beth left Josh alone in her father's office, the city lights beginning to flicker on as evening approached. His phone showed dozens of missed calls. David, his mother, Beth's mother, various board members who'd somehow already heard the news. Josh ignored them all. He pulled out his phone and finally did what he should have done weeks ago. He called Danielle. She answered on the third ring. What? I'm making a choice. I need you to know that. Josh, I can't. I'm not marrying Beth. I'm walking away from the merger. The company is going to collapse, and I'm going to lose everything. But I need you to know I'm choosing you. I'm choosing Alana. I should have done it 6 years ago, and I'm doing it now. Silence on the line. Then, why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand this isn't about guilt or obligation. it's not about doing the right thing or fixing mistakes. I'm choosing you because a life without you isn't worth having, even if it looks perfect on paper. You're going to regret this. Danielle's voice cracked. When the company fails and people lose their jobs and you lose your home, you're going to look at me and Alana and blame us. No, I'm going to look at you and thank God I was brave enough to choose correctly this time. More silence. Then Danielle said something that broke Josh's heart. I'm scared. Me too. What if it's not enough? What if choosing us doesn't fix anything? Then at least I'll know I tried. At least Alana will grow up knowing her father fought for her instead of taking the easy way out. Danielle's breath hitched. When? The wedding is in less than 2 months. I'm going to wait until then. Why wait? Because I need to tell everyone the truth. Not just Beth and her father, but everyone who came to celebrate what they thought was love. They deserve to understand why I'm walking away. That's going to be humiliating. Probably. But it's the only honest thing I've done in months. After they hung up, Josh sat in Mr. Mooney's office as darkness settled over the city. He thought about his father, about the company that was about to collapse, about the employees who would suffer because of his choice. But he also thought about Alana asking why she didn't have a dad who showed up, about Danielle raising their daughter alone for 6 years, about the ring he'd been carrying like a talisman, waiting for a second chance that had finally arrived. The choice was terrible. It would destroy the safe life he'd been building and hurt people who didn't deserve it. But choosing Beth, choosing the company, choosing duty over love, that would destroy something even more important. It would destroy the man Josh was trying to become. He typed out an email to David, then deleted it. Some news needed to be delivered face to face. Tomorrow he would start the process of dismantling everything. Tonight he just sat in the dark and tried to find peace with a decision that felt both right and catastrophic. Chapter 9. The final week. The week before the wedding felt like living in a countdown to execution. Josh moved through his days with mechanical precision, attending final fittings and rehearsal dinners and bachelor party planning, all while carrying the knowledge that he was about to detonate a bomb in the middle of 300 people's celebration. Monday morning, he sat David down in the conference room and laid it out plainly. I'm not marrying Beth. The merger is off. David went perfectly still. Say that again. I can't go through with it. I'm ending the engagement. You're joking. I wish I was. David stood, paced to the window, turned back. Do you understand what you're doing? The company has maybe 3 weeks of operating capital left. 3 weeks. Without the Mooney investment, we're done. Finished. Bankrupt. I know. So you're choosing to destroy everything. Just like that? Not just like that. I've been trying to find another way for weeks. There isn't one. David's face went red. So because you can't solve the problem, you're just giving up? What about Janet? What about Ryan? What about every single person who trusted you to save this place? Each name was an accusation. Josh felt them land like physical blows. I know what this costs, but I can't marry someone I don't love to save a company. I can't pretend for the rest of my life. Pretend? David's voice rose. You think life is about doing what you want? It's about responsibilities, about being a man instead of a child who can't handle hard choices. I am handling the hard choice. I'm just choosing differently than you want. You're being selfish. You're destroying 70 lives because you can't keep it in your pants. The crude reduction made Josh's temper flare. I have a daughter, a 5-year-old girl who deserves a father. That's not selfishness. That's finally prioritizing what actually matters. What matters is keeping your word. You made commitments to this company, to these employees, to your father's memory. But none of that counts because you found some woman you used to sleep with. Watch how you talk about her. Or what? David moved closer, anger radiating from him. You'll fire me. We're already going under because of you. What else can you possibly do to make this worse? Josh forced himself to stay calm. I'm meeting with a bankruptcy attorney tomorrow. We'll file by the end of the week. That gives everyone time to prepare, to update resumes, to hate you, because that's what's going to happen. Janet, who's been here since your father started this place, she's going to hate you. Ryan, who's 6 months from retirement, he's going to hate you. Every single person whose life you're destroying is going to know it's because you couldn't handle your personal drama like an adult. The words found their target. Josh had been avoiding thinking about facing his employees, about explaining that their jobs were disappearing because he'd chosen love over legacy. I'll tell them the truth, Josh said quietly. The truth that you're a coward, that you're walking away because being responsible is too hard. David headed for the door. You're not the man your father was. He would have made the hard choice. He would have protected his people. After David left, Josh sat alone in the conference room and let the guilt wash over him. Maybe David was right. Maybe choosing Danielle and Alana was the ultimate act of selfishness, prioritizing his own happiness over everyone else's security. But when he thought about explaining to Alana years from now why he'd married someone else, why he'd chosen duty over being her father, the alternative felt even worse. That afternoon, Josh called a company-wide meeting. 70 faces stared at him as he stood at the front of the room, some curious, some worried, all trusting that he had good news about stability and the future. I need to tell you something. Josh's voice came out steadier than he felt. The Mooney merger is falling through. Without that investment, the company doesn't have enough capital to continue operations. We'll be filing for bankruptcy by the end of the week. The room erupted. Questions, anger, disbelief. Janet stood from her seat in the front row, her face pale. What happened? I thought the merger was certain. It was. But circumstances have changed. What circumstances? Ryan's voice carried from the back. We've been counting on this. You said we were stable. Josh wanted to lie, to make it sound like market forces or banking complications, but these people deserved the truth. I'm ending my engagement to Beth Mooney. Her family is withdrawing their investment because of my personal choices. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Janet sat back down slowly. Ryan shook his head in disgust. Marco, sitting near the middle, asked the question others were thinking. So we're losing our jobs because of your relationship problems. I have a daughter I didn't know about. I can't marry someone else while abandoning my child. But you can abandon us? Janet's voice broke. I've been here since your father founded this company. I worked through market crashes and expansions and your father's death. And now you're telling me it's all ending because you can't handle your personal life. Josh had no defense. I'm sorry. I know this isn't fair to any of you. Fair? Ryan stood. My retirement was supposed to start in 6 months. I've been counting down the days, and now that's gone because you prioritize getting laid over your employees. It's not like that. Then what's it like? Marco's voice was quiet but sharp. Explain how your choice to walk away from a business deal for a woman you haven't seen in years isn't exactly what it looks like. Josh looked at these people, good people, loyal people, people who'd trusted him to lead them, and saw nothing but anger and betrayal. He'd convinced himself that choosing Alana was the only moral option, but standing here, watching lives crumble because of his decision, the morality felt less clear. The bankruptcy attorney will meet with everyone individually, Josh said. You'll receive severance, letters of recommendation, whatever support I can provide. Support? Janet's laugh was hollow. What support can you give when you're the reason we need it? Josh left the meeting to the sound of angry voices and went straight to the bar across the street. He ordered whiskey and sat alone in a corner booth, trying to process the hatred in those faces, the justified rage at having their security destroyed by someone else's crisis. His phone showed messages from wedding vendors, from Beth's mother demanding to know if the engagement was truly off, from his own mother's attorney about some aspect of the dissolution Josh didn't care about. He ignored them all except one. Danielle. How bad was it? Josh typed back. Worse than I imagined. Do you regret it? He stared at that question for a long time. Ask me again after Saturday. Because Saturday was the wedding. Saturday was when Josh would stand in front of 300 guests and explain why there would be no marriage, no merger, no happily ever after. Saturday was when the last bridge would burn. The rest of the week passed in a blur of meetings with attorneys and accountants and HR representatives. Josh signed papers dissolving the company his father had built, authorized severance packages he could barely afford, wrote recommendations for employees who could barely look at him. David stopped speaking to him entirely. They communicated through lawyers now, the partnership that had sustained them through difficult years shattered by one impossible choice. Thursday afternoon, Beth appeared at Josh's office unannounced. She looked tired, smaller somehow, without the armor of family expectations. My father wants you to know he's going to make sure you never work in this city again, she said without sitting down. He's already called in favors, spread word that you're unreliable. I figured. My mother is devastated. The wedding planner cried when I told her we were canceling. 300 guests need to be notified. The venue is keeping the deposit. Beth recited these facts without emotion. You've created a spectacular mess. I know, I'm sorry. Are you? She finally met his eyes. Or are you just sorry it's messy? Because those aren't the same thing. Josh considered this. Both, probably. I wish there'd been a cleaner way to end this, but I'm not sorry for ending it. Good. Beth's smile was sad. At least you're honest now. That's more than most people manage. What will you do? Take some time, travel. Figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be who everyone expects. She moved toward the door. For what it's worth, I hope she makes you happy. I hope your daughter is everything you're giving up the world for. Beth, don't. We're not friends. We're two people who almost made a terrible mistake, and we're both better off for avoiding it. She paused at the threshold. But Josh, when it gets hard, and it will get hard, remember you chose this. Don't resent her for it. After Beth left, Josh sat at his father's desk and looked around the office he'd soon be leaving. Photos of the company's early days lined the walls, his father looking young and optimistic, employees celebrating milestones, buildings being constructed, a legacy built through decades of work. And Josh was about to reduce it to nothing. Friday evening, his mother called. Josh almost didn't answer, but he picked up on the last ring. I won't be attending the wedding, she said without preamble. I can't watch you humiliate yourself and this family. There isn't going to be a wedding. I know. Everyone knows. You've made sure of that. Her voice was ice. I hope you understand you're alone now. No family, no company, no future. Just that woman and her child. My daughter. And maybe being alone is better than being surrounded by people who only love me when I do what they want. You'll regret this. She said it with complete certainty. You'll wake up in 6 months or a year and you'll realize you destroyed everything for temporary feelings. Then I'll live with that regret. But at least I'll know I tried to be the kind of person Alana deserves as a father. His mother hung up without saying goodbye. Josh sat in his empty office as the sun set and tried to imagine what Saturday would bring. 300 guests expecting a wedding. Photographers ready to capture a joyful merger of families. Beth's father prepared to announce the business partnership. Instead, they'd get Josh in a tuxedo, explaining why love had to matter more than money. He called Danielle one last time before the rehearsal dinner he wasn't attending. I'm scared. Me too. What if I'm wrong? What if this destroys everything and we still can't make it work? Then at least you tried. At least Alana will know you fought for her. Josh closed his eyes. I need you to be there tomorrow, at the wedding. I need to see your face in the crowd when I... No. Danielle's voice was firm. This is your choice to make, your moment to own. Don't put that on me. She was right. This wasn't about grand romantic gestures or public declarations of love. It was about Josh finally choosing correctly, no matter the cost. I love you, he said. I need you to know that before tomorrow. I know. Danielle's voice softened. And Josh? Whatever happens, thank you for choosing her, for choosing us. Even if it's terrifying and expensive and destroys your life, thank you. After they hung up, Josh packed up his office. Photos, files, personal items accumulated over years of trying to live up to his father's legacy. He left the furniture, the expensive desk chair, the framed articles about company success. None of it mattered anymore. Tomorrow would either be the bravest thing Josh had ever done or the biggest mistake of his life. He wouldn't know which until he was standing on that stage, watching his world end, hoping something better was waiting on the other side. Chapter 10. The stage. The wedding venue looked like something from a magazine spread. White roses climbed marble columns. Crystal chandeliers refracted light into rainbow patterns across polished floors. An orchestra warmed up in the corner, their music drifting through air, perfumed with expensive flowers. 300 guests filled gilt chairs, dressed in their finest, champagne already flowing before the ceremony even began. Josh stood in the groom's suite, adjusting his bow tie with shaking hands. His reflection stared back from the full-length mirror, a man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, about to walk into a celebration and burn it to the ground. Someone knocked. David entered without waiting for permission. He hadn't spoken to Josh in days, but apparently showed up anyway out of some sense of obligation or morbid curiosity. "You're really doing this," David said. "I'm really doing this." "Last chance to change your mind. Go through with the ceremony. Save what's left of your reputation." Josh turned from the mirror. "My reputation is already gone. This is about being honest for once." "Honest?" David shook his head. "You're about to humiliate Beth in front of everyone she knows. Call that whatever you want, but don't call it honest. Honest would have been ending this weeks ago in private." "You're right." Josh felt the weight of that truth. "But I was too much of a coward until now." David left without another word. Josh stood alone, listening to the orchestra play, imagining the guests settling into their seats, expecting a wedding that would never happen. His phone showed one message. From Danielle. "Whatever happens next, you chose correctly. Remember that." Josh pocketed the phone and walked to the door. Down the hallway, through the marble atrium, toward the garden where Beth waited at the altar, in a gown that probably cost more than most people made in a year. He could see her through the French doors, poised, elegant, playing her part perfectly, even though she knew what was coming. Because Josh had told her this morning, had called and explained exactly what he planned to do. She'd listened in silence, then said simply, "I'll be there. I deserve to watch you own this." The wedding coordinator appeared, clipboard in hand. "5 minutes, Mr. English." Josh nodded. 5 minutes until he destroyed everything. 5 minutes until he became the villain in 300 people's story about the groom who lost his mind at the altar. He walked to the garden entrance. The guests turned to watch him approach, smiling, anticipating. Josh saw Mr. Mooney in the front row, his expression already suspicious. Beth's mother clutching her husband's arm. Business associates who'd flown in from across the country. Everyone important, everyone powerful, everyone expecting to witness the merger of two dynasties. Beth stood at the altar in her designer gown, a vision of perfection that Josh was about to shatter. The officiant smiled welcomingly. The photographer positioned himself for the perfect shot of the groom's entrance. Josh walked down the aisle alone, no groomsman, no father to give him away, just himself and the choice he'd finally made. He reached the altar. Beth met his eyes, and he saw in them a mixture of pity and relief. She knew this marriage would have destroyed them both. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about love and partnership and building futures together. Guests watched, rapt. The photographer clicked away, and Josh stood there, waiting for his moment. They reached the vows. Beth went first, reciting words she'd practiced, words about commitment and forever. Her voice never wavered. She played her part perfectly, knowing it was all performance, all theater before the truth. Then it was Josh's turn. He opened his mouth to speak the vows they'd written together. Instead, Different words emerged. I can't do this. The garden went silent. Even the orchestra seemed to stop mid-note. I'm sorry, Josh continued, his voice stronger now. I'm sorry to Beth, to both our families, to everyone who came here expecting a wedding. But I can't marry her. I can't stand here and make promises I know I won't keep. Mr. Mooney rose from his seat. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm telling the truth for once. Josh turned to address the crowd. 6 years ago, I fell in love with someone. Her name is Danielle. We were planning a future together. Then she disappeared, and I never knew why. I moved on. I built a life that looked successful. I got engaged to Beth because it made sense on paper, because it would save my company, because it was the responsible choice. Beth's hand moved to cover her face. Josh forced himself to continue. 2 months ago, Danielle drove the Uber I called when my car broke down. She had a booster seat in the back. A daughter. My daughter. A 5-year-old girl named Alana, who I've never met because I didn't know she existed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The photographer had stopped taking pictures, camera hanging forgotten around his neck. Danielle left because she overheard a conversation and thought I'd chosen my family over her. She was pregnant, and I never knew. I lost 6 years with my daughter because of a misunderstanding, and I was about to lose the rest of her life because I was too afraid to make the hard choice. This is insane, Mr. Mooney said, moving toward the altar. You're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe I am, but I'm also finally being honest. Josh pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. His hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped it. He found Danielle's number, pressed call, held the phone up. She answered on the second ring. Josh, I love you. His voice broke, tears streaming down his face in front of 300 witnesses. I should have said it 6 years ago. I should have fought for us then. I'm fighting now. What are you doing? Danielle sounded terrified. I'm standing at my wedding, telling everyone the truth, that I have a daughter who deserves a father, that I love a woman I should never have lost, that I can't live a lie anymore. The venue erupted. Mr. Mooney was shouting about contracts and lawsuits. Beth's mother had collapsed into her seat, sobbing. Guests were standing, phones out, recording Josh's public breakdown for posterity. Beth stepped forward. Her face was wet with tears, but her voice cut through the chaos. Stop. Everyone quieted, shocked by her command. This is humiliating, Beth said, looking at Josh. What you're doing to me right now in front of everyone I know, it's cruel. She turned to her father. But he's right. We weren't in love. This was a business arrangement and we both knew it. So let him go. Absolutely not. Mr. Mooney's face was red. He doesn't get to humiliate you and just walk away. He's already walking away. The only question is whether we make it worse. Beth removed her veil with steady hands. The wedding is over. The merger is off. Everyone can go home. Mr. Mooney grabbed Josh's arm. You've destroyed everything. Your company, your reputation, your future. And for what? Some woman who'll probably leave you again? For my daughter, Josh said quietly. For the chance to be the kind of father she deserves, for a life that actually means something. You're a fool. Mr. Mooney released him with disgust. And you're finished in this city, I'll make sure of it. Josh stepped off the altar, still holding his phone, Danielle's voice asking what was happening. He walked down the aisle toward the exit. Guests moved away from him like he was toxic. Someone spat at his feet. David was nowhere to be seen, probably already gone, disgusted by the spectacle. His mother stood in the back row, her face a mask of contempt. Don't ever contact me again. I won't, Josh said. He made it to the parking lot before his legs gave out. He sat on the curb in his tuxedo, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to Danielle's voice. Josh, talk to me. What just happened? I chose you. I chose Alana. I chose us. He wiped tears from his face, and I lost everything else. Oh God. Danielle's voice was thick with emotion. What did you do? What I should have done 6 years ago. Where are you? Josh looked around at the parking lot, the venue behind him still erupting with chaos, his life in ruins around him. I don't know. Everything's gone. The company's going to collapse this week. My family disowned me. I have nowhere to go. Silence on the line. Then Danielle's voice, soft and scared but certain. Come here. Come to us. Are you sure? No, I'm terrified, but come anyway. Josh stood on shaking legs. He had no car. Beth's family had arranged his transportation to the venue, expecting he'd leave with his new wife. He called another Uber, standing in his tuxedo while guests streamed out of the venue, shooting him looks ranging from pity to rage. The car arrived. Josh climbed in, giving Danielle's address. The driver took one look at him, tuxedo, tears, obvious catastrophe, and asked no questions. 20 minutes later, Josh stood outside Danielle's apartment building, still in his wedding clothes, phone dead, nowhere else to go. He buzzed her apartment. Josh? Her voice crackled through the intercom. I lost everything. I have nowhere else to go. Long silence. Josh waited, wondering if she'd leave him standing here, wondering if he'd been wrong about everything. Then the door unlocked. Josh climbed the stairs to the third floor. Danielle stood in her doorway, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking more beautiful than Beth had in her $1,000 gown. Behind her, barely visible, Alana peeked around her mother's legs. Hi, Josh said stupidly. Danielle's eyes were wet. You actually did it. I actually did it. You're insane. Probably. She stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in, we'll figure out what comes next. Josh entered the small apartment. Nothing like his penthouse, nothing like the life he'd been building. Alana stared at him with curious eyes that were exactly his own. Mama, she whispered, is that my dad? Danielle looked at Josh, then at their daughter. Yeah, baby, that's your dad. Alana considered this, tilting her head in that way Josh recognized from mirrors. Are you staying? Josh crouched down to her level, still in his ridiculous tuxedo, tears still wet on his face. If your mom lets me, I'd like to try. Alana looked at Danielle, who nodded permission. Then the little girl stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around Josh's neck. And just like that, after losing his company, his family, his reputation, his entire life, Josh finally had everything that mattered.